You feel lucky, punk? That's what I ask myself sometimes. You know, I'm not sleeping all the time these days, especially without marijuana or alcohol. Like, I can't even afford them. And for the longest time, like I couldn't live without the devil's lettuce. Really couldn't. And I was using it to get through my social anxieties. Same with the booze when I was younger, because I've never been a darling amongst my peers. And so for those of you just tuning in, welcome to my social reject channel here with Everyday Taekwondo in this video series, The History of Propaganda. And this one, I'm going to have a good time with it, but I'm going to laugh at other people's expense, just like feminism, I really just don't give a flying feces anymore, because there's a real exodus here, to be the story to be told about the genesis as to why wars are fought. If I'm going to make it biblical like that, and not pass over the important details that are left out, because the Bible is if I'm going to use it as a historical document, is a collection of testimonies of authors, and not all of them are known. So some of it is debatable, and some of it is taken as sacrosanct. But there's other ones like the Book of Enoch, which are interesting. There's other books I can't tell you at the top of my head that for which might be more accurate to ask my sister, as the theology major, and so on and so on. Personal correlation here: Trent University, and my favorite here, I keep calling them out in the descriptions of these videos, because I deserve accreditation by doing this. I deserve a lot better. I deserve to finish my degree and to teach this, because I'm absolutely destroying you right now by your lack of response. If we're going to go on a tangent for a moment here before I get into the reasons for war, I'm kind of doing a sticks and hammer impression here, because he just does things off the cuff like this too. Excuse me. Gotta love Vancouver. Stimulants and gay people. I just don't give a shit. I'm gonna say whatever the hell I want. Damn the censors, like, censors be damned. If the truth doesn't come out, then the behavior and the degeneration will just keep happening, and it'll have nothing to do with drunken behavior or slinking the halls of Ontonabe College or Lady Eaton without any underwear on, like. Oh, goodness me. Younger days, that's for sure. But Master's College, theology school, used to have a more, actually Trent used to have a more Christian lean to it, but they don't, of course they don't tell people about that. You know, it's because of it's an English tradition, and it's actually one of the newest universities in Canada. It was like founded in 1964, if I remember correctly. And Christians make the best rebels throughout history because we just don't care. We don't care. We'll tear you right down from your Roman nose. You know, this one here, this is the Roman nose. You know, they get the slight bump in it, but not the Arab crook there. So you know where my lineage comes from, and my highbrow. You know, yes, I come from high distinction. I was meant for the upper crust of society. Yes, yes, yes. Now, as a revolutionary kind of counterculture establishment, you know, I feel like that university has totally lost its way, and hence why they're not responding to me. I may be a failure in a lot of ways, but history is not one of them. And that was my, my actual major, as inspired by my history teacher, Mr. Richards, in high school at CCH here in London, up there. Papyrus, nonetheless. Both of those things. Both of them and then the Ontario Scholar thing. You know, like a lot of people are just like, oh, it was high school, it's just frickin' university, it's colleges years ago, it's in the past. Why are you harping on that? Why are you bringing that back up, and why are you digging it up again? Because the past matters, right? If you see the pattern, that it's the predictor, you can determine and extrapolate, well, what is the future, you know, by the mind's eye. And I tell you, my third eye is freaking open, okay? And the crown chakra, it's painful. Oh goodness, that's why I can't even sleep sometimes. You know, and having been abstinent for so long, the sexual energy in this body is just like, hey, how you doing? Oh goodness. So like, what else am I gonna do except complain and gripe and moan about all the things for which I feel are in opposition to to me procreating and continuing on this message about how homosexuality and degenerate behavior lead to war and destroy societies. That's the gist of it, you know, because that's one of the main reasons why wars are fought, and it's homosexuality. It is. Another one is women, right? Another one is drugs. Another one is genocide. And then the last one that I can think of off the top of my head is religion or occultism, different belief systems. And, you know, my God is more awesome than your God. Be praised from heaven above. You know, it's not like you ever see any violent Buddhists, but you do. Yo, those Buddhists are freaking crazy, man. I'm telling you. You get them angry, and it's over. It's game over for you. They're just going around with freaking machetes or whatever else they can get their hands on, hacking people to pieces. Yeah, you never piss off a monk. You don't ever piss off a monk, because monks throughout history are the ones that, you know, were writing and, you know, writing the texts, the first ones to write down the Bible, or the religious texts like the Talmud and the Torah and the third book of Judaism, which they don't tell you about. I'm missing I got the computer in front of me. Why don't I look it up? The book of Leviticus. That's what it says here anyway. Torah, Talmud, you know. And if I could make fun of Judaism, it's kind of bipolar, you know. It's like, if it's not in this book, it's going to be in this book. It's going to be great. It's up to interpretation. Hey, if you think it's from this one, it's okay. If it's from that one, it's okay. You know, I don't know. I'm not God. I talk to God sometimes, and he don't make no sense. It's so confusing. I can't dig it anymore. I got. It's the same way, right? Like, imagine being at the head of a church, and Christians with the Old Testament people and the New Testament people, or the more holistic ones, which I would include myself in. First thing in the morning, and there's physiological reasons, as I've just demonstrated before, and precursors as to why this psychopathy, as other people put it, whereas I prefer to say psychopathy. It's like Neanderthals versus Neanderthals. Tomato, tomato. Tomato, tomato. Tomato, tomato. Whatever. I'm gonna go straight to the homos, honestly, because obviously as a survivor of sexual assault, I got my chip on my shoulder that I need to get rid of, so that I can establish a new line of trust amongst my peers and return to the art world via force, a tour de force, which is already happening, if you ask me, by me just putting my art online in a video and making it absolutely priceless and irreplaceable. There's no way in your life or in my own that these things will ever be reproduced, bar none. And I'm thinking about like old school traditions, and one of the things that I used to really be fascinated about, especially as a horny young man with access to cable television, were like the Red Shoe Diaries, Bravo, like Channel 39 here in London, Sue Johansson, and Taboo, which was another TV series, and one of them detailed like bathhouses and that sort of tradition. And I was curious as a young man. I'm like, what the heck is this stuff? Where did this come from, right? And I was recently reminded by going through Instagram, and it's very easy to find people that you're not looking to find on Instagram. Okay. So be very careful what you put online if you don't want people to know that much about you. This goes to my fellow people of intelligence, which I have no association with. And I'm a civilian, okay? Like, I'm just gonna say whatever the hell I want. I don't give a shit anymore, right? Don't shoot the messenger, right? Like, all the information about humanity is online for everyone to see. And if you're allowed to see it, or you're using proxies to go and find it on some of the oldest forums, in the world, because that was the whole point of the internet in the beginning, was to share information. It was not to make it limited. It was to achieve a new consciousness. The swastika is a symbol of God consciousness, and the God consciousness tells me to give shit to freaking gay people, honestly, and to anyone that just deviates from the path, because this is what leads to war. One of the number one reasons is what leads to war is the allowance of homosexual behavior. This is part of my religion. And my religion is Christianity. Thank you very much. And my rights shall not be infringed. There's the dog. So, let sleeping dogs lie, but in this case, let's wake this dog up. You know, the bathhouses. Now, from what I remember, the bathhouses have always traditionally been, you know, a place to commune, and it's not necessarily something that's repeated. You know, okay, so Northern Europeans, they would have the saunas and so forth. But you imagine that sanitary conditions of the past were not as good as they are now, and water purification wasn't as good, you know. And then you have all these phrases in the English language like "don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," and so on and so forth, and other various traditions like water births or baptisms. And, you know, excuse me, I ate some beans last night. Beans. I honestly, I really don't care about money. Money is a tool. And, smart people don't care about money. They don't. That's the way it is. But okay, so with the you know, the baths, you know, communal baths, there's a lot of diseases and microbes, and oh gosh, we're gonna go on a tour now. I'll just come back in a second, but the dog is just annoying sometimes. Okay, back from the dog. Step back from the dead. Let's plug this in. This has been unplugged all night. There we go. 51%. So by a majority, excuse me, of the world is female. It's women. If I remember correctly, estimated world population by division. Okay, well, until 1957, the sex ratio, 101 males to 100 females, that's the 2021 estimate. Going back to communicative diseases or our conditions, you know, this is or like sexually transmitted diseases. There was another series on it was education about culture and sex, and again, just a horny young man, and thankfully having, you know, well, and to my detriment in some points, access to the internet and, you know, the ease of pornography. Just put two and two together there. Hey, you know, it's okay, whatever. I'm a sex positive Christian. I just I'd rather see things change and return back to reasonability with, you know, and eliminate the propaganda, because the propaganda is a lie. In a lot of cases, it's about supremacy of some sort. And someone else is benefiting from it. So one demographic of people or one religion or race is benefiting from the elimination of another. So again, then that's genocide, right? Demographic or ethnocentric genocide, which I call ethnocide. I'm coining that term, and I've used it before. It's mine, thank you very much, amongst the other ones like transgenderism, And okay, so going Bruce Nuclear, or I swear to Gord, those are all mine, thank you. Feel free to use them. I want them to continue on in the language of Canadianisms. But okay, so besides the language, again, oral traditions, and oral traditions. A lot of men find that disgusting. I don't. I really don't. Because if she ain't warmed up, you ain't going anywhere. When we were a lot more stupid, there was this idea of, it's from Greek tradition. The concept is pediotogy. So, okay, so pedo, meaning young, right? Pediotogy. Why can't I freaking find it? Not prodigy. Well, pediotogy is the study of teaching. Oh, pedagogical approaches. There we go. Of course, it shows up after there. The method of practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept. Now, if you're just tuning in and you're not paying attention to my Instagram, I was trained through cadets. Great program, and I don't want to see it disappear. I would rather it return to a more militaristic and an aggressive stance than it is now, because as other people have told me, it's straight away, and I saw that happen myself from what it used to be to something completely different. And that's why I'm so, and angered with the psychotic organization that is the Canadian Forces, and why I turned down my commission at 19 years old. Because I could have been an officer right now. I could have been a major quite easily through the CIC. And that's besides the point. But, pediotogy, like in some Greek traditions, the idea was that if you're going to inseminate your lessons into the young people, that you would have to have sex with them, which is freaking weird, okay? And you know what psycho is? Sticking your penis up any kind of rectum, because it just wrecks them, right? Psychologically and physiologically, right? The reason why there's a pleasure center at the prostate inside the anus is to reinforce the passing of excrement, right? It's supposed to feel good to have a crap, right? You're not supposed to shove things back up there. It's totally psychotic, right? But the behavior comes from parasites, right? Because the symbology in the Bible, at least, has to do with snakes. The serpent in the Garden of Eden. that gets between Adam and Eve, and what under the microscope most of the time, if I correct me if I'm wrong here, the parasites are like little worms, right? And then further developed within the ecology, like through lampreys and so forth. They're leeches, bottom suckers, very very low level developed, single cell organisms with no eyes, right? Because when it comes to development of mammals or any other life form, the first thing to happen after cellular division from the stem cells is to develop sensory organs, and the eyes are usually the first one to happen, or so as I remember. So now that we see clearly and connect the two things together from, so the lack of sanitary conditions, waterborne diseases and microbes and parasites, single cell organisms like amoebas, there is evidence to suggest, and there is the pattern of behavior within nature of parasites that alter the behavior of the host and drive them to do do things that they normally wouldn't. And so like those parasites, the zombies, they turn the host into zombies. The one that I found out about recently was that worm thing that gets inside the snail, and it's like called the disco snail, right? With it's weird to look at. And it gets communicated through the excrement, right? Another easy one is, of course, the plague, right? The Great Plague. It got because of the lack of sanitary conditions. It gets communicated, and how does it get into the system? Fecal matter, right? And if you're sharing the same space, sharing the same water, it just gets into you, or you're forcing it into someone. Excuse me, I keep farting. So, back to the Turkish bathhouses. There's another, like in Northern European, something similar would be the saunas, but they're not sexual. But some people make them sexual, because as I was reading up and reminding myself again through 6 degrees of separation between me and a Turkish person who was bisexual in Toronto, I looked at him and I'm just like, ugh. I'm just so tired of this shit. I'm so tired of it, because again, it's one of the reasons why wars are fought is when there's not an equal distribution of men to women, and there's not equal opportunity, and hence the foundation for society and civilization. Well, at least one of the other reasons it was to go away from the animalistic tradition and hierarchical top-down structure, like a pyramid, right? Because at the top you have the people, like the 1% of men and women that decide the rest of the society as to whom they have sex with and where the genes go, right? So because this is the message, as I said before, the history of propaganda is in part and parcel a trace of history of humanity. Because the message itself, the technology, right, correlating to modern day, and as watching the civilization fall and crumble between our eyes, and say between the cracks, blinded by the light, so to speak, right? Winter is here and it's staying here, and we're very close to nuclear winter at this moment, as we have in many other points in the past. I'd rather that not happen. But okay, so. The thing that I remember from this TV series, Taboo, or something similar, was them talking about, the gay bathhouses in Toronto. And I'm just like, okay, I'm fascinated, but I'm disgusted at the same time. And now that I know about it, I wish I didn't. It's like the Blue Oyster Bar. You know, that movie's kind of hilarious. But you know, as someone who's been into a couple of gay bars myself, I'm just like, I'm in there looking around. I'm like, this ain't for me. You know, just ain't for me. No thanks. You know, if you want to live that lifestyle, all the power to you. You know, it's not an attractive lifestyle in my opinion. You got a lot more challenges, a lot more social pressures. You got higher exposure to parasites and to bloodborne diseases, and you got a smaller dating pool. So you're basically trading off partners all the time. And then there's, there's historical documentation as to the rampant drug use and suicidal tendencies. So if you want to go and live that life of isolation, go ahead and do it. It's your school bus. You can crash it if you want to. Famous words by someone that I listen to. The written word, the spoken word of oral tradition, you know, again, so this is one of the reasons why circumcision happens, and one of the stupid reasons why circumcision happens. And it's very, you know, FGM is highly prevalent in African and sub-Saharan African cultures, and in Arab countries and Malaysia, to varying degrees, and they see it as a blood sacrifice, an initiation into womanhood, and is a lot of times performed just after birth or something like that, and it is male domination, but also female domination at the same time, because it's one of those traditions that gets repeated for centuries until they're told not to do it. And it includes all, you know, the remove in some instances the removal of the labia, the removal of the clitoris, and I'm just like, ugh, no way. That's like taking off the glands, chopping the glands off of the off the penis. I'm like, nope, I ain't doing it. Ain't doing that, man. I'm telling you. And you know, so you're talking like thinking like a reasonable deductions to make. You know, considering hygiene and so on and so forth, and education. You know, that an uncut penis would be considered in some cultures to be dirty. You know, because of the possibility of a yeast infection. You know, because it's very delicate down there, and just the way it is for a woman. So you have to be very careful as to what kind of soap that you use, and you know, not to disturb the microbiome of the person. You imagine, okay, getting on your knees as a woman, or something like that, or perhaps a man to another man, because you know there's a lot of gay tradition in the military. Say like the era of Troy and the Spartans. The Spartans were bisexual, so when they were out on deployment, they would have sex with each other, paired into squads, and you have your lover beside you. And they believe that by having your lover beside you, that you'd be a more fierce warrior. And so on and so forth. You know, there's a lot of gaps to be filled here. Quite literally. And, you know, this is very poignant. You know, the Starbucks, the siren song in Vancouver. Okay, Vancouver is another gay center in Canada because it's a paradise. You know, it's a rainforest, and so it's a temperate climate, It's very easy to live there, and there's a very large population. And hence why our Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, loves it so much. How you doing, buddy? At this time, it's the current year, 2023. Revenge is a bitch, ain't it? I gotta drink this. I gotta, because it's stimulants. Stimulants, Vancouver, gay people. Reasons for war. Unequal distribution and access to women. And then you also have psychosis and women, being the emotional manipulators throughout all of history. And if you consider the game of chess, the queen has more leverage and more power on the board than any other piece. It is the most valuable. The king, all right, whatever, he can take out pawns or other pieces, but without any leverage himself, like he can't take out another king. That's the whole point of the game, and the reason for its invention was for kings to play instead of losing their armies. Because the thing is that when it's all out war, and most of the time it becomes a war of attrition, and in wars of attrition, both sides lose entirely and completely. It doesn't matter what the impetus and what the motivations are for the war. When you start fighting each other, everybody loses, right? That's the whole point of intelligence or psychological warfare, is to reduce the number of casualties. Because most of the fight is, if we're going to talk about this, because Christians have a grand tradition of spiritual warfare, and if read correctly, the Bible is a manual for this, and also for other kinds of warfare, because it's a story. It's a narrative from one side of the galaxy, from the macro, from the large side where God is, down to the micro, right? So where the meteor is, because that's another theory as to where life originates on the planet, with spaceborne microbes and basic chemical and mineral combinations, say like from iron oxide, starting the basic biochemistry, the organic chemistry that leads to the creation of things like amino acids and whatever else. There's people that explain this more in depth and more astutely than I can. And frankly, I want to keep this, again, not as, a testimony as to how much knowledge I know and some intellectual masturbation, because frankly, there's enough of that on YouTube, and way too much. A lot of posers, a lot of pseudoscientists, a lot of pseudo intellectuals, people that say they know something and know something, but they don't understand it. That's another principle of philosophy, is that knowing and understanding. You can understand something and not know it, and you can know something without understanding it. Like that's like spirituality. You know it's there, but you don't quite understand it, right? It's ephemeral. It's abstract. And then you can understand something, but not know what it is. Like I understand that I have a life. That doesn't mean I know how to live it, or I know what it means, if there's any meaning to begin with when it comes to having your own life. So to further with this instructional technique here, I'm thinking of China right now and the one world policy and their reason for war. One of them being, resources, right? So if humanity is thought of as a conceptual idealism, as humanity as a resource, or as women as a resource, or as the next generation is a resource, that for which debts are leveraged upon, right? Bankers, right? Okay, so this leveraging of the next generation to pass on the debts, but to also wealth transfer, right? The great wealth and multi-generational wealth transfer. So some people, that's where like this intersectionality, grievance, post-colonial fucking bullshit comes from. Oh, you benefited from colonialism. I'm like, does it look like I'm benefiting from colonialism right now? Does it? Because if you can't match what I'm saying, then you're not on the same level and you need to get learned. So school is in session. Thank you very much. So this history of propaganda, motivations for war, here we are. Sip on my coffee, my Turkish delight, and my Turkish coffee. Hoi, 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 hoi. Okay, so why the basis of religion? Well, religion, if you're going to stay divine or godly, right, and not, and because like the most civilizations are centralized around religious practice or some ceremony, or some shamanism, and thus is the community. There is no humanity without spirituality, right? If the energy centers are not aligned, whether it's 5, 6, 3, whatever basis of belief system that brings everybody together for a sense of altruism, then we're just basically doing drugs and making beer, right? Without beer, without spirits, there's no civilization. There's no communication. And so by me saying this, I'm going to put this on the internet forever. If someone doesn't want to trade art for beer or beer for art, I can't help you, man. And that shit's gay. Totally. Like, that's incestuous. Because art is forever, beer is temporary, and I'm sticking to that. I don't care what you think. It's amazing what you can access in your memory banks, right? Just by doing certain daily practices. And so ritual and practice are part of religion and history. The recording of names and dates. Right? If you're going to remember history, remember names and dates. It's for all the fighter pilots out there. I told you I would do this. Names and dates. Okay, so I think I've done enough damage to gay people on this one, because it's already damaging to live that life, and for them to be thrusted into a position of becoming an idol, living idols, to be worshipped. I'm friends, acquaintances with some, and I used to be closer and shared a house with one, whom was my friend. Like, not to make him a fetishized person, but it used to be that it didn't matter, and that you could share, a house or share, workspace and not have to worry about it. but this thrusting and this forceful and this psychotic nature of the gay propaganda just completely ruins my trust in that community, and completely ruined a lot of my ex-girlfriends, right? Because then these women, with their higher degree of openness, right? Okay, start communicating and start reorganizing society for more matriarchal organization. And when women have too much control over society, it all crumbles, right? We have too many queens and not enough kings because they start fighting each other. And this is the Handmaid's Tale, right? I'm getting into it. I'm watching more of the TV series, and I'm just absolutely, it's a dramatization. And I will read, Margaret Atwood's original text. But from what I can deduce at this moment from the very few episodes that I've watched from the 2017 TV series, is that it's a warning to women that if you allow too much lesbianism, and if you allow for too much hedonism and too many drugs and not enough respect for men, then men come back like a whirlwind and institute authoritarian dictatorships. And then you're stuck back in the same place that you started before the suffragettes. Because this is the cycle of history. And if we don't communicate, and if we don't observe and give respect to this pattern of human behavior, which is our history, our shared fabric of all ages, then I can't help you, sister. I can't. Because this is when you force your ideology upon children. It's like a fart in the wind after a while. Hence the transgenderism, right? Like, just utopia is a place it's a place in the hearts and minds. 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 Hey, do you remember when the United States came up with that gay bomb? Yeah, that was fucking crazy, wasn't it? Holy, it's a good thing they didn't figure it out, eh? Environmental contamination and stress, right? And other contaminations within the culture. You get the petri dish, for which, again, the parasites alter the behavior, sometimes on the microbial level, if not on the viral level, because the parasite, there's an alternative theory to virology, and there's other people that have studied this far more than I have. I'm not a pathologist, right? I'm just one guy with the internet since 1997. I'm a fucking idiot, honestly. What do I know? So the alternate theory to virology, if I remember correctly, is that viruses are actually cleaners of DNA. Because if you allow, because after replication, if the DNA gets assembled too many times in different sequences, then that's how you get cancer. And if you have cancer, there never used to be a solution to that. It was like a time bomb waiting to happen, like an expiration date on the organism. The whole, because you think about the body itself, and it's a symbiosis of different cell types that caused me to carry around this big old mushroom in my head or in my skull that's electrified and is causing me to flap my tongue and my lips to communicate to you through this propaganda machine. So, Handmaid's Tale, matriarchal society. I'm watching it, and it needs the reverse Bash-and-Del test. So the Bash-and-Del test, for those of you who are still holding on to the tenets of feminism, and are watching this and watching me implode or explode, or the bolt of lightning across the sky here, the sheet lightning, fire and lightning, very, very frightening, against hedonism and degenerate behavior, that men don't speak very often in that society to each other. And they're not on screen for very long with each other. It's just all centralized around women. So I look at it and it's like, this is an act of revenge. What's the men's perspective on the whole thing? This changes everything. It does. And again, like if it's allowed, if the behaviors of women are allowed to continue, and the contamination of the gene pool by too many outsiders, which we all become this gray, black, brown human mess, to be honest with you, because diversity is the spice of life, and good fences make for good neighbors. And I want to retain, whatever semblance of culture that Canada has left from our Northern European heritage, and from the natives, because I don't think the natives are too happy with Trudeau, and his government, or the previous governments of Canada to begin with, or with Kent Monkman, by the way, a propaganda artist in his own right. And I burned him multiple times through Instagram because his message doesn't have relevancy after a while, because it's so violent. And not only is it violent, it's in your face, it's aggressive, and he uses this transgender two-spirit character called Chief Mischief, right? To be a sneaker fucker. Let's put it like that. I bet you, because that's another problem, is that men who claim themselves to be gay and spend all their time around women, right? This is basic psychology. I bet you if you give them enough time around a woman, and they're comfortable to a certain point, his brain will get switched, and the primal nature is to procreate. Right, and in the reason why the drug abuse happens is because there's within this the Rainbow Warriors community, is because of the psychotic behavior and because of the pain involved, and the initiation of anal sex or whatever, or circumcision. This is humanity. It's freaking weird. Okay. Because you think about club kids and the scene in New York in the 1980s, where AIDS happened, right? HIV, and the thing is that while this behavior has existed throughout all of human history, again, psychotic women with too much openness, getting allied with gay men and turbo lesbians. That's another coin term. So turbo lesbians are usually women that are not attractive, and of course they've probably experienced some sort of a sexual assault in their past, some unresolved trauma. That's the same way with the grooming of the pediotogy, the forceful passing on of knowledge through insemination. Oh, I'm gonna I'm going to produce this child in the image of myself because I am the God, I am the teacher, so to speak. Not saying that something like that ever happened to me, but it's happened to other people. The same with any religious traditions of the cloth and whatnot, and already well known and so forth, and other weird religious practices that shall not be named because if you're watching this, you already know. All right, if you find this, then you're probably already interested in this anyways. It's just not well communicated because it blows the lid off of so many methods of control through the propaganda, right? Like the propaganda of acceptance, of love, and of compassion. Okay, I gotta split this up. Of love and compassion. This is how it always happens. This is how the predators speak of themselves and get themselves into these safe spaces. It's always the wolf in sheep's clothing. The one that appears nice. Beware of the pure gentleman. And I'm not a nice man by saying these things. Obviously, I'm not interested in how you feel about them. I feel about what I say. I'm interested in getting the truth into the open sphere on the public domain as to what I've collected and observed in order to have the history of propaganda. Because if I don't go down in history as one of the stupidest people ever, I can't help you. The siren. So resources. I was just talking about that. If we're going to go around in a circle here and have a conversation, a one-sided one at this point while you're watching it, because I could probably go about an hour on this alone as a survey. But again, resources, invaders. As you look at the classical study of the Roman Empire, they was a famine or something along those lines. They couldn't distribute, and then diseases. Waterborne diseases. Something like the plague, and a change in demographics. So either too many old people or too many young people that are not of childbearing years. And so thus if you are a social engineer, is the means of population control. But the thing is that sometimes it works too well, and hence why something like the LGBTQ movement of the last 20 years, if not a little bit more than that, was thrusted into the open, and it worked way too well. Right? This is what happens with intelligence operations. Is that and then kismet gone wrong, so that the idea of leaving the world a better place than the way that you found it, which also is a Christian tradition, and obviously of a lot of other religious traditions, to leave something better than what you found it. But the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and I didn't have good intentions. I wanted to destroy the entire world, but I'm doing it anyways. So. Whatever. I've had other people destroy my world. So an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The Old Testament. And leaves the leaves the whole world deaf, dumb, and blind. Nuclear warfare via attrition. You're not working, I'm not working, nothing happens. Going forward, if you make it this far, anyway. So I said gay people, psychotic women, genocide, resources. Goodness. I'm running out of steam on this one. And religion, okay? Religion. So the resources, and then outside invaders, that was a reason for the collapse of the Roman Empire. Because it got too large. And the same for the Ottomans, against the Turks that came after, right? Because so the Ottoman Empire was obviously off after the Roman Empire and the split of Constantinople. So old, like say, East and West Rome, right? Eventually, it has to be all broken up because one man, one emperor, and the forum of consultants and so forth can't keep track and can't control the population. As it is one of the tenets of human psychology, and from what I've learned, and also the organization of many fighting units, is that one person can't really keep track of more than 30 people or 33 people, somewhere around there, like the number of vertebrae in the spine, the body, the corpse, in order to maintain functionality. So hence that's the tendency to self-organize. And since we're in a state of entropy, because it's been an accelerationism at this very moment, because it's the current year, since 2016, and then we're talking about the matriarchy and the leading to you think about it, and the further that they don't really show with the few episodes that I watched. They don't really show a leader figure. Like they show some den mothers, so to speak. They show older women at the head, and again the reverse Baschendel test, where no two men are speaking to each other about something other than women yet. And I'm starting to see propaganda in it, and I'm going to do a video on just that, that interpretation and Margaret's warnings, because she was, when she wrote the book, it was in 1987 it was published. She was talking about PCBs, DDT, and dioxins, environmental contaminants that would lead to infertility. And that's the reason, that's the end world dystopia that those people exist in, because when we become infertile, it means the absolute end of the line, the chopping off of the limb, which causes an entire post-traumatic stress to the body of humanity. Because if you remove a limb or you remove an organ, and by my assumption, Northern Europeans, Russians included, are some of the smartest people in the world. The absolute smartest. And if you wipe us out, there won't be anybody else to help you. Again, ethnic supremacy. I'm going to look out for my genetic lineage, and I'm going to look out for my genetic heritage. It's only fair. Then it's only natural. So, beans and counting, bean counters. When this, as one of the motivations for war, is when the society and those who have resources at the very top, or some sort of organization where they hold all the women, say so through dating apps, for themselves, and they supply the rest of the population with subpar substitutes, which have lower education standards, lower intelligence, and fewer options in their lives, lower expectations. They're willing to accept slavery because that's how it happens all the time. And those who have higher degrees of openness, that leads to a more chaotic and anarchistic society. And that's what happens when you give women too much control, is that the tendency towards hypergamy and cheating, which there is a biological and reasoning for it, evolutionary psychology, in that the ovum wants to find the best partner possible. And if you're going to get further down into the physicalities of sex, when a penis is thrusted into the vaginal canal and it reaches the end, if the man is circumcised, or say if the man is uncircumcised, the foreskin will pull back and pull out any other material that's there, right? Like a shovel. So that's the reason to have a foreskin, but you think about male circumcision, and it's very forceful. Those men, from the reports of women, is that they much prefer men with foreskins to not having foreskins, as long as the penis has been washed and looked after, the sanitary conditions and whatnot. Because it's just much smoother. It's biologically and biomechanically better to not fuck with humanity, and not to fuck with sexuality, and not to turn our bodies into living sacrifices and idols to Baphomet and to the devil, the serpent, the parasite, so to speak, that alters the behavior and leads to weird things like, so dopamine burnout, serotonin syndrome, addictions, and the worshiping of certain idols, like the bull, the rams. You think about what's a reason for that? It was probably parasites. The ram's head, right? The ram's blood. Some cultural association with the milk and so forth, and pasteurization, in which raw milk coming from those animals, and they're down in the muck, right? And if not cleaned properly, then that's a means of communication for more parasites and for more microbes, and not the right kind, right? Because if the gut biome is an organization and an equilibrium of different microbes that help us in symbiosis to produce energy right through the intestine, and also turn it into gas. That's why what's the phrase in English? So you think your farts don't stink? If your farts don't stink, that means you're very healthy. Very healthy. It means you're not pushing out the entropy gases, and everything is being processed correctly and to the highest efficiency. By biological deduction, this is what I come to that conclusion, and through observation, through my own diets, is to see, okay, so keto, if we get into a tangent here, this is why I really appreciate the ketogenic diet. I'm going to support it here, and to possibly date myself in this moment, in time for which I put this up on the internet. Because the theory is, of course, that we're omnivores through the organization and typology, so to speak, of our teeth, and the study of the skeletons of carnivores and predators versus herbivores. So, of course, us having become predators upon each other because we've become so advanced with the technology and that our lives are so good that we don't have an observation, or a lot of people don't have the observation or an understanding about how hard life actually is. And hence why a lot of veterans are so fucking angry, is because they go out and they go into these countries, these far-flung places where there's a lot more animalistic behavior and a lot more backwards by Western standards, organizations and behaviors and culture, and the allowances of opium addictions or cocaine or other psychoactives that are used as hallucinogens and dissociatives, drunkenness, poisons, neurotoxins, so that people will not feel anything and have temporary psychosis, because this is also a thing in the past in which, so say like Norse warriors, when going into a battle rage, they would cut out their eyes and then eat mushrooms so that they didn't have to witness what they were doing on the battlefield. Berserker. So the drugs, that was one of the other ones on my hand here. But the proximity of all these things, to keep this short and under we're at 16. I'm about an hour. It's a lot of information. I'll leave it here and let you think about this in conclusion. So what I was going through at the beginning was homosexuality, bathhouses, microbe and parasite transmission, psychotic women with too high a degree of, well, not psychotic necessarily in the beginning, but women with a too high a degree of openness that want men, and naturally so, want men to be good fathers, because that's the thing that happens that I haven't mentioned before, but it's well documented. It's supported with other information by other people that have studied this with evolutionary psychology and of forensic psychology, because they have, after neuroscience, right? So Andrew Huberman, he mentions this, that a man's testosterone will drop sympathetically to a woman when she gets pregnant, right? Because then also through aging, a man's testosterone drops off as his fertility drops off as well, almost in line with a woman's. Nothing lasts forever, right? You gotta exercise. You have to keep the testosterone up in order for the sperm production to happen, and in order to maintain a sex drive, you can't just sit there and be a silverback and expect things to happen. Hence like cocaine addictions in older people in midlife crises because of hormonal changes and of regrets, of missed opportunities, and so on and so forth. Not that this has happened to me yet. I had my quarter life crisis after failure. I was like, oh geez, what am I going to do now? I suffered many years of depression, and going on a tangent here, in more attribution to my personal history. I've been beat on Other children have tried to kill me and drown me. I've witnessed other children or been close to other young people who have drowned. Other traumatic events. Not to download them onto you, because or I've witnessed acts, sex acts, repetition or redemonstration of something that happens to young men in their homes or within the cadet system or within Boy Scouts, whatever the organization, or through the church, Catholic Church. There's just so many stories like this that leads to this degenerate behavior, because the wires are crossed and the person doesn't have a frame of reference because of either a poor home environment, right? Not having a faith, and not having a support system, not having talk therapy, and then having psychotherapists on the pinky end here, broken people of a certain religion that believe that there's certain religions and belief systems that believe that there's more than two genders, and that there's more than two sexes, and then they get into this gobbledygook, which I've already explained in a previous video, and it's exhausting. It's just insufferable. So, and then these women in the thought that they're nurturing, and want, and again, so they're on birth control, and they're acting like they're pregnant. So then the man sympathetically reduces testosterone because of pheromones, because that's the chemical communication between the two, between the two partners. Because a man is supposed to stick around for a woman for the first 5 years, if not longer than that, because obviously it takes a long time for a human child to come to maturity. 25 years. 25 years for the brain to develop into its full potential. And some say 33. After 33 is supposed to be the age of reason. And what Jesus started his teachings at the age of 34, before he was crucified. So, I'm going to try and keep this slower, because, it's a lot of information, and you can understand why I'm not sleeping so much these days. And I'm going to go out now in the snow. I'm going to go ship something to a friend who's building my motor for my project car. A passion project for which I've been, I pulled it out of the junkyard, and this is completely on another tangent, and I'm very thankful for it. And it's going to Ottawa, and I may just end up there myself someday, because we gotta do away with this entropy. The scale has to swing from one side to the next and back to the center again. And right now, there's no equal distribution. There's no equal access, and the barbarians are here and are being used as a slave caste. And as someone that's been subjected to, or someone that has been an unwilling participant in human trafficking, I just don't want to do it anymore. I had a vision of dying on the battlefield. And when I woke up, I said to myself, nope, I ain't doing it. We'll see you soon, and we'll try to expand upon this. Oh, dang it.